The second chapter of this book is a history of Zionism, and the chapter is called The Unnatural History of a Bad Idea. Zionism is a really, really bad idea, and we have to recognize that. It's made sanctified by all this propaganda.
Right, tremendous propaganda.
Unbelievable propaganda. And so this book itself is going to be blacked out. You're never going to see a review of this in a major publication. You'll have to...
You'll see it on public access television,
That's right,
ladies
because
and
this is a
gentlemen.
Democrat...
And Echelon, we want you to know this program's going out so you can get it in your database.
Because this is a democratic space.
Yes, right.
Okay? This space is not controlled by powerful lobbies.
Right.
Among which the most powerful, perhaps, is the AIPAC or the Zionist lobby.
Do you think George Soros wrote that thing saying that should be questioned?
Soros is one of the very few extremely wealthy Jews who is not Zionist, to his credit, to his great credit. And he's alarmed at what's happening with the state of Israel.
Is that the most powerful? NRA is more powerful? Is AIPAC the most powerful lobby in Congress now, do you think?
To me, it's the most powerful by far.
Not only the Congress, but also the whole society. Because it's put a pale. You cannot say anything, or you're got to be self-hating because you're Jewish. I've got to be anti-Semitic.
Or I can be anti-Semitic too.
Or you can be anti-Semitic too, accused of it.
I mean, I don't care what
but it's a litany that comes out just so trippingly off the tongue, and it's there and everything like that, and something that is absolutely no-no.
What I did in this book was simply say, listen, I understand all that. I'm just going to say what I think is true.
Okay, good, yeah.
And that's what, as I told you very clearly, I'm interested in religion, but I have no connection at this point to the Jewish religion, particularly to Orthodox Jewry. And yet there are Orthodox Jews who are really faithful to the Torah and so on, who have just as bad a view of Israel and Zionism
the whole
as I do.
Karta.
And the
Satmar.
Exactly.
And they argue strongly for that.
And
Rabbi Dome is
now these people,
leader.
I would disagree with them on this, that, and the other thing, but we both recognize that this was a bad idea. For different, and in a way, for the same reason, although because I feel it's a bad idea because it denies the universality of human beings and it installs a racist state. Okay, they feel it's a bad idea because it violates the spiritual content of Judaism. The Zionist project required several things in order to be realized. One of them was the ethnic cleansing of the indigenous inhabitants of Palestine.
Had to be.
Had to be. I quite agree that Zionism is an aberration. It's a remnant of ethnocentric and ultimately racist feeling. It attempted to escape the persecution of the Jews, and the Jews were being in trouble in the late 19th century, no question. But it only did so by creating persecution of other people and the like. And it is very bad for the Jewish people, in my view. In fact, I argue, you can say, if anti-Semitism is the reduction of a people to an essence, they are this way, this is only one way for them to be, then Zionism is anti-Semitic. Because it says the only thing the Jews can do is to have this state, in the strong state in the Eastern Mediterranean. They don't need that. And well, I don't think that overcoming Zionism is sufficient for building a better world. I certainly think it's necessary.
Overcoming it.
Yeah, overcoming it means getting beyond it. Basically, logically, you can have the status quo or something beyond the status quo. The status quo is a horror. It's degrading everybody and annihilating the Palestinian people. Annihilating them.
That wall.
The wall, whatever.
The whole thing. The whole ball of wax.
Taking the whole thing and making it into a concentration camp and making war on it. You're going to see war again, invasion of Gaza.
They just bombed
it's unbelievable.
Gaza again
but
today.
That's the internal logic of Zionism. It has, and the book spells it out. You want to go beyond that. So, compressing a little bit, you have, let's give each person their own state. Israeli state.
That's a two-state solution.
Several things wrong with that.
You got an imbalance of power for
It's impossible right now. If you suddenly withdrew the Israelis, and just accept, you're not going to disappear, they'll surround it. There's no way the Palestinians can have a state on what Israel is. Israel has destroyed the conditions. Thank you, Zionists.
The little Bantu state.
No, it's not yet. That's the point. That's why I say it's worse than apartheid.
Worse than apartheid.
That if you get a two-state solution, that's even a decent one, where you take down the wall, remove those settlements, which are totally illegal, the whole world has known that, take out the checkpoints and so on and so forth, then you get to the point where you have raised Israeli state racism to the level of a South African state racism.
I see.
The two-state solution is either totally impossible or a Bantustan, which in my view is unacceptable because it was wrong back when South Africa did it, and it still should be wrong. The only possible solution that is justice in this world is to have a single democratic state, not a binational state where you have the two nationalities, but a state that is for all the people, all of its citizens. Okay?
On the West Bank and
the
Israel proper and everything.
The whole thing.
Okay.
Now, that is an idea that would, if you poll the people in Israel right now, would get maybe 1% of the vote.
Okay.
So people say, well, this is totally unrealistic.
Because it wouldn't be a Jewish state, for one thing.
That's right. It wouldn't be a Jewish state. But my point
also,
is...
the return for Palestinians around the world and so forth.
It's predicated on the Palestinian right of return.
So there goes the idea of a Jewish state, and then anti-Semitism will raise its head because anti-Semitism is built into the DNA of everybody except Jews in the world, in the minds of a lot of people.
Well, that's a myth. That's a fact.
Yeah, but it's one that's an active myth.
It's an active myth, but it's not the case.
But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Not the case. No, you were quite correct. So what the one-state solution is a goal. It's a logical goal.
Vision,
It's like it's something you set your compass for. You say you will not be satisfied until this happens, and then we're going to move towards that goal.
Right, and let that one state be a just state.
And let it become part of the thinking of the world. Because one reason that nobody votes for it is because they're not even allowed to think about it.
Right.
I want people to think about it. Read this book, you'll start thinking about it. The more people think about it, the more they will start moving towards it, because it's the only thing that's humanly worthwhile. Okay?
And you're going to be able to create a single state, that the single state would be characterized by a just system for all the people involved in that state?
Yes, of course. If you take that goal and accept it and that logic, then what happens is that you start weakening the pull of Zionism. You start saying, well, what do we need this Zionism for? Because Zionism is just an idea, a very bad idea. It can be overcome, which is to say replaced by a better idea, a more universal idea. And it can happen fairly rapidly.
And that's an analogy that can apply to the whole world, perhaps, beyond all the pitfalls of a class-based system of nation-states that some power over others.
It's nothing but postulating universal human rights.
Universal human rights, and that might be the challenge not only for Israel, Palestine, but for the whole damn planet.
It always has been. Basically, it's a question of human rights and universality against tribalism and ethnocentricity.
Right.
And I can turn to the audience and say, isn't it time for us to outgrow?
I think it is, don't you? I think it's time.
That's the point. Outgrowing, overcoming, same kind of thing.